Good morning. I am Kevin Price. Hope you're having a great Tuesday. Delighted to be able to spend some time with you, talking to you about you and your business. Got a lot to talk about, and let me tell you something that we often don't think about our business, but what's happening on the political and international front should be. It affects every aspect of our lives. If you're in a city like Boston and you're trying to do things like a Boston Marathon, and of course, our great town has a lot of events like that of our own. You know, it has a great impact not only on one's business, but virtually every aspect of their lives when they have an event of terrorism take place. And so we need to be thinking about these things, what kind of impact that they potentially have. I've got Jessica Zuckerman. She's with the Heritage Foundation, one of the country's premier think tanks out of Washington, D.C., and did an article recently on Al-Qaeda being on the march worldwide. Jessica, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it sounds alarming, Al-Qaeda on the march worldwide. We don't get a whole lot of stories about it anymore. It's kind of interesting. I thought about that. Unless something major happens like the Boston Marathon, we don't even hear much of these type of stories anymore. I find it kind of odd, to be honest with you.
You know, that's really true. We've heard a lot of this narrative that Al-Qaeda has largely been defeated. And while Osama bin Laden's been dead for 2 years and the core of Al-Qaeda has largely been defeated, there's a lot of affiliates and other related organizations still operating in as many as 30 countries around the globe.
Yep, and even some major competitors, if you know what I mean, who don't have the same theology as Al-Qaeda, but they're still Muslim extremists. I mean, it's an interesting dichotomy out there, and the media does a very poor job of covering it.
Well, that's certainly true, and now folks are starting to pay more attention to this threat. Unfortunately, it took something like Boston for us to raise attention again in this country.
Yeah, so they're on the rise again, and they're on the march. And I say again, it's not like they've ever stopped. They've had pretty serious momentum since the early 1990s, and have really never lost steam, have they?
That's very true.
You know, we look at the situation with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was trying to deal with them, and obviously dropped the ball. I think people will look back historically on that, and then of course what happened on 9/11. It's an interesting situation. So a lot of people are wondering whether or not these young men who were involved in this act of terror in Boston, are they really serious affiliates with Al-Qaeda, or are they wannabes?
You know, we don't really know all the details of that yet. We have seen folks from Chechnya and Dagestan be affiliated with Al-Qaeda and share in the struggle. In fact, they helped fight in Afghanistan with Al-Qaeda back in the 80s. And there have been connections, but we're really not sure of the full scope of this yet, but it's certainly a possible concern.
Mm-hmm. So where else are they on the march? Where else are seen with some significance but are not being really covered by the media?
Well, we've seen the influence of a group called Jabhat al-Nusra, and that they're active in Syria and affiliated with Al-Qaeda. We've also seen Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which is a very strong affiliate of Al-Qaeda. And we've seen groups that many folks might not know of, like Boko Haram, active in Nigeria, or Lashkar-e-Taiba, active in Pakistan. And all of these groups have ties to Al-Qaeda if they're not a direct affiliate. And that's something we need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. And in the West, where are they most active in terms of, their activities are most widely seen?
You know, well, here in the United States, for one, we have seen an increase in homegrown terrorism. Now, some of these folks are inspired on their own by reading, Inspire magazine or other jihadist propaganda, but we have seen Al-Qaeda affiliates kind of reach out for Americans or those naturalized here in this country because they have the ability to move about easily with less suspicion, speak the language, and understand the culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, you talked about the Chechnya situation. I think that's really interesting because early on after September 11th, there was a lot of conversation about the fact that we could eventually start seeing Caucasian-looking, terrorists coming on the United States soil and Chechnya being the source. We hadn't seen much of that, but over a decade later, are we going to be seeing more of that type of thing?
Well, that's certainly a concern of these terror plots we've seen foiled in the United States. Unfortunately, Boston wasn't one we stopped in time. But we have seen about 54 thwarted terrorist plots since 9/11. And of those, about 44 have involved homegrown terrorism. And a lot of these have been Americans or individuals who are radicalized here in this country.
What do you think about the whole situation in terms of the apparently the intelligence community here getting a lot of help from Russia before the Boston massacre? You know, did the Obama administration's intelligence apparatus drop the ball, or what's your thoughts about that?
Well, there are still a lot of questions on that. We don't know exactly what Russia informed the United States of or how long that information kept flowing to us. It very well might have been the case that Russia just warned us and then decided it wasn't in their political interest anymore to keep communicating. We have seen that issue come out of Russia before. But indeed, there are a lot of questions still occurring.
Yeah, but when I look at like the situation over last week, when you have now the highest ranking person that was at the embassy in Benghazi saying that what took place in Benghazi was pure theater on the part of the administration, reeked of cover-up. This is a Democrat appointee in that position. You get this, and this huge desire in them part for this to be anything but Middle Eastern terrorism. They wanted it to be a demonstration, so they create this theater. I keep on thinking that there's a possibility that the last thing they want to acknowledge from anyone, like a denial that an alcoholic might have of a pending problem that might be taking place.
Well, we have certainly seen this vision that Al-Qaeda is largely defeated, and this message coming out of the administration, not just recently, but throughout. We've seen a lack of recognition when potential terrorist attacks have had links to Islamist extremism. I mean, we haven't even called Fort Hood a terrorist attack as far as the administration goes, instead calling it often workplace violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously motivated by things other than working conditions. The guy was a senior officer in the military. He had been there a long time, could leave anytime he wanted to. Clearly, that was not the case. Again, there's this incredible desire to try to create this almost fairy tale relationship that the problem with terrorism and Middle Eastern extremism is isolated, but it seems to be quite pervasive.
That's very true.
So, well, listen, I appreciate your time. Jessica Zuckerman, she's with the Heritage Foundation. You can learn more about Heritage at heritage.org. Plus, I'm a big fan of your site, The Foundry, over there, foundry.org, where you keep compile some great content every day, adding dozens sometimes of new articles from many different perspectives on a lot of different issues, all from a conservative worldview. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. When we come back, we're going to have much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here. Show us up over there at usdailyreview.com. Stay tuned for more right after this.
It's been getting so hard living with the things you do.